Welcome back for a very special edition of Traveling Cat Photos. So today I'm giving you a very special insider's tour of the National Steinbeck Center. You get to see behind the scenes and including a very special peek at something brand new inside. The National Steinbeck Center was built in 1998. It is the largest literary museum dedicated to a single author, John Steinbeck. This portrait by photographer Sonia Noswek is what we call Handsome John, taken when he was 33. So you start your tour out in the Long Valley Theater. This is a short bio about John Steinbeck and a little bit about the industry that supports it, big agriculture. Let's go inside and take a quick look.
In America, miners are considered just below acrobats and just above seas. So the traveler told a Russian interviewer, "I have always recognized that I did not have great talent, but rather relied on the whip to make me overleap my limitations." So protested the never-satisfied writer.
After the film, you would cross the lobby to the exhibition hall and to a giant map of the region, a plaster statue of John, and a stack of his books that were written in the area. Can you tell which one is missing? It's The Grapes of Wrath. It was written in Los Gatos, about an hour away from Salinas. So John Steinbeck was born just 2 short blocks away from here. We have his family, which includes Olive and John, his parents, his grandparents, including the Hamiltons. The Hamilton Ranch shows up quite a bit in a few of his books, and his siblings. One of the interactives here is these little turnabouts. You will find a giant version of East of Eden in this section. Steinbeck considered it his greatest book that was almost half its length. He declared it finished to his editor and then decided to continue the story. We're so lucky that he did. This section also covers John's childhood with a recreation of his boyhood room, including quotes and photos. When you talk about John growing up in the area, his influences were many, but his family always came first. We'll find out more about Knights of the Round Table in just a bit. Now, as we walk around this next corner, you're going to find quite the interesting display. That's because we're putting in a brand new exhibit. That will be here by September 14th. And that is just a few days before this film is going to debut. So I'm going to put the finished pieces at the very end of the video so you get to see how it turned out. But for right now, it's in progress. That's going to be a beautiful mural for Valley of the World. East of Eden is a more modern version of the biblical story of Cain and Abel. The casting of James Dean was controversial, but ended up being perfection. It's here you can see a photocopy of John's real handwriting. He wrote very tiny and on both sides of the page to conserve paper. From here, we move on to more books like In Dubious Battle, The Red Pony, which is usually the first book that California middle schoolers read. And yep, that's another exhibit coming in soon. Check out the end of the video to see what this one turns out. It's a very hands-on museum. You can ride the pony, you drive the car, you can start the fire. Kids can touch anything they want because the artifacts are protected under glass where they can look but not damage. This means you don't need to worry about what they touch in the museum. We are very family friendly here, so we give all sorts of opportunities to engage. And that includes these QR boards. You will see them all through the museum with their QRs to scan and find out more. This one shows how Of Mice and Men was made into both a musical and an opera. That's right, a musical and an opera. There are films all throughout the museum as well that you can spend a lot of time just sitting, relaxing, and enjoying them. The next section is Cannery Row. Written after World War II, it was a romanticized version of Steinbeck's time down on the docks and in the tide pools with his best friend, Ed Ricketts.
To steal my money. Terrible as the goal was, the arm and their building. In time, they would take a certain pleasure in the knowledge that this.
Here's another one of those. Did you know?
There was nothing in the world they could do about it.
One of the fun things in this area is the models.
The pirate stood before them, and there were tears of happiness in his eyes, for he had proved his love to his friends. To think, he said, all those years I lay in that chicken house and did not know any pleasure. But now, he added, oh, now I am very happy.
All right, there's some hidden things here too. For instance, right here, Tortilla Flat, which was his first success. Pulled down. There's a whole other display back there. And there's two of them. We have rotating art exhibitions. This one right now is about Arthur Rothstein, a Dust Bowl photographer. Just like there were other writers there at the Dust Bowl, there were other photographers as well. Move on to Sea of Cortez. This is a magical time for John. Not only was he able to go out and find out more about the Mexican people, but also he and Ed Ricketts discovered 50 new species while they were there. There were several people on this journey with John and Ed on the small Western Flyer. Ed took this photo. One of the centerpieces in the museum is the Pearl. This amazing mural created by local artist Jose Ortiz depicts the novel perfectly. Now, the Pearl is a fable from Mexico that John always loved. And so when he got back from Sea of Cortez with Ed, he decided to make it into a novella. One of the most popular books that John has, and one that we introduced to middle schoolers and high schoolers in the area. Out of that trip, The Forgotten Village and Viva Zapata were also born. Although John wanted to use a full Mexican cast, Hollywood had other ideas. He often lost his battles with Hollywood. Anthony Quinn actually won the Best Supporting Oscar for his role, and John was nominated for Best Writing, but didn't win. In fact, Steinbeck was nominated for an Academy Award 3 times for his writing, but never won an Oscar. And look, did you know?
People did not. Frightened, but he had to do it. He walked into the new world past the wall.
John was a war correspondent during World War II, and actually he did a little bit during Vietnam as well. This section tells about his efforts and his very much boots on the ground personality. He was actually injured in World War II. Managed to be too close to a bomb when it went off and lost part of his hearing in one ear. He says his report will be of battle plan and tactics, but these are some of the things he probably really saw. He might have seen the splash of dirt and dust that is a shell burst, and a small Italian girl in the street with her stomach blown out. And he might have seen an American soldier standing over a twitching body crying. John definitely paid a heavy price, but he always understood it's not as heavy as those he watched. John's books have been translated into languages all over the world. In fact, we have 74 different countries visit us every year. All right, I promised Knights of the Round Table. When John was 14, he read the Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur, and if you look at his works, well, I have a theory. My theory is that he was always writing about the good knight fighting the good fight, and it didn't always work out too happy. Salinas might have been his childhood home, but New York was his adult home. John never liked the spotlight. Matter of fact, that was probably the thing he hated most. He never wanted his picture taken, to be the center of attention. When he was nominated and won the Nobel Prize, unfortunately, it had its good and bad things. The good, of course, was the award. He was very honored. But the bad was the critics weren't too happy about it. Said he was the best of the worst of the crop. And then he had to get dressed up in a tux and go give a speech. It was not a fun time for him, but he was honored nonetheless. Steinbeck also won a Pulitzer for The Grapes of Wrath and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And then Travels with Charlie. So if you're a traveler like we are, you might have done that route maybe more than once. I think I figured out once that I'd done it 4 times before I even knew about John Steinbeck or the path that he took with Charlie. Charlie was his wife's dog because John knew that people would talk to a man with a dog faster than they would just a man by himself. And he was totally right. The camper that we have here is the original that he had made for him. Truck campers were not that common at that time. And he found out they were tricky. About halfway through his trip, he had to get new suspension, new tires, and be able to carry the weight of this self-contained unit. That's right, it has a bed, a dining table, a kitchen, and a bathroom. One of Steinbeck's tricks was to park the camper and then let Charlie off the leash. He wouldn't wander far, but Steinbeck would walk around asking people if they'd seen his dog. Then when Charlie returned, John was able to continue the conversation. His travels took him from New York across to the West Coast, back down to Salinas, where he found out you can never go home again, and then over and down to Louisiana. This was one of those moments that changed John's life and stuck with him for forever. After he made his way back to New York, he wrote Travels with Charlie, but the story and the lessons that he learned about America and Americans stuck with him. And like Grapes of Wrath, which started out with a pamphlet called Their Blood is Strong, and then led to Grapes of Wrath, Travels with Charlie led to the book American and Americans. If you've read Travels with Charlie, which is our first recommendation for everybody, it's pretty much a fun travel log. Lots of great insight. Lets you hear the narrative of John Steinbeck to see if you'll like reading his work. If you enjoyed that, we encourage you to read American Americans. It is still relevant. The American public doesn't change all that much, but progress has been made and you will find some comfort in there. But I think you will enjoy it. He was born in 1902. He passed away in 1968. He had 3 wives, the second of which was the wife, Gwen, that he had his 2 sons with, Thomas and John IV. And I'd like to think he lived a mostly happy life. But you can find out so much more about that right here. Let me show you the timeline. There's Charlie. Here at the exit of the museum, we have a timeline to show you when he was born, went to school, his experiences. His friendship with Ed Ricketts. And yes, John Steinbeck is buried right here in Salinas, only a few miles from the center. I remember the first time I walked into the museum long before I ever worked here, and probably sat here for 45 minutes just taking in the extra information. As we mentioned, there's lots to do here for the kids. That boat we passed, they can sit and play in. The gazebo has a typewriter, although John never used a typewriter. He wrote everything out by hand. He had a special type of pencil that only had to be sharpened to a point every 3 paragraphs or so that he used. And then either his wives or his editor typed everything out. Now think about the size of something like Grapes of Wrath or East of Eden, and you can imagine that's a lot of writing. We've really enjoyed having you here with us today. Hang on, I'm about to show you that completed new exhibit and tell you all about it. It's been a few days. The interactive is completely ready. I just want to give you a peek. Take a look. So these are all about some of John Steinbeck's little known books. For instance, and then get a little hint from the graphic, and then the answer. So the beauty of this new interactive is that you can change it out. So every time you visit, it will be different. All right, time to show you that new exhibit. Like I said, it's been a few days. We unveiled it, did the ribbon cutting, all of that, and now I get to share it with you. So this exhibit is so important because it is the very first permanent exhibit that we have added in about 20 years. The Valley of the World Awards commemorates big agriculture, the best, the brightest, that have supported us and that were John's influence and inspiration. So let me show you the new exhibit. This corner originally featured the Chrysanthemums, one of his many short stories. Time for a change. We started with the demolition, and the muralist, designer, and curator Mackenzie Floyd set up her crazy-looking but effective graph, and slowly the farms in Santa Lucia Hills appeared on the walls. Within the frame of the vintage crate labels hangs the quote that sums up the love of this valley and its inspiration for Steinbeck. We wanted an exhibit that kept the vintage feel while bringing in some modern touches, like the slideshow that features all of the past and present Valley of the World honorees, allowing us to include future winners, and includes an in-depth information about the industry as well as quotes from the many books and stories John wrote about his home county. Along with the beautiful mural from Mackenzie Floyd, we're also proud to present the moving photography of local photographer Steve Zemek. And finally, the artifacts, including first editions of Steinbeck's books in an ever-changeable display. Steve's images illustrate the produce, the people who grow it for the world, as well as the progress of the scientists who are constantly innovating to provide more food to more people in more environmentally friendly ways and allow Monterey County to continue to be the Valley of the world. And of course, what trip to a museum would be fun without going to the gift shop? Lots of different things for you to see, including John's books, of course. Here you will find everything Steinbeck you may want to take home, along with supplies for any writer in your family, fun beach reads, and even puzzles. And of course, stickers and magnets too. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Take care, safe travels, and we'll see you next time. We hope you've enjoyed your private tour and will give a thumbs up for the algorithm. If you're looking for more to do while you visit the Monterey Santa Cruz area, check out our last video where we saw more than 50 sea otters on our Elkhorn Slough Safari Tour